Pope Francis, a revered figure within the Catholic Church, frequently discusses Christian doctrines. In a recent discourse, he delved into the topic of the impending arrival of the Antichrist, emphasizing the presence of malevolent forces in our midst. The intriguing question arises: in what manifestation does the Antichrist exist among us? Could it be embodied in a political figure, an astute extraterrestrial being, or perhaps something entirely different? The Antichrist theory posits that this figure could assume the role of a religious leader, introducing a complex element within the realm of end-times exploration known as eschatology. This notion has instilled a sense of caution towards religious authorities, drawing insights from interpretations of biblical verses. In 2 Thessalonians 3-4, Apostle Paul references a lawless figure in opposition to God's, which some interpret as the Antichrist, a religious leader characterized by sinful inclinations. In the realm of speculative theology, an intriguing theory unfolds, portraying Pope Francis not as a malevolent figure, but as a religious leader seeking to unify global faiths under a common banner. This interpretation, often termed the religious leader theory, envisions Pope Francis as a charismatic figure with a vision for a new world order, uniting diverse religious traditions. The narrative commences with a profound exploration of the Pope's actions and teachings, drawing parallels with biblical and theological concepts. Proponents of this theory point to passages in the Bible that hint at the emergence of a charismatic religious figure who unites various faiths. They reference verses like 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, which alludes to a man of lawlessness opposing God, suggesting a departure from traditional religious norms. As the story unfolds, Pope Francis is portrayed as a bridge builder, actively engaging with leaders from different faiths to foster understanding and cooperation. His emphasis on interfaith dialogue and collaboration is seen as a reflection of a genuine desire to create a world where religious differences cease to be a source of division. The narrative draws inspiration from Quranic verses promoting harmony among different religious communities, aligning with Pope Francis's pursuit of unity. The theorists delve into historical instances where religious leaders attempted to create a unified faith, drawing parallels with figures like Akhenaten, who sought to establish monotheism in ancient Egypt. They suggest that Pope Francis might be guided by a similar vision. The narrative emphasizes the Pope's unique position as the head of the Catholic Church, allowing him to exert significant influence over a substantial portion of the global population. As the story progresses, Pope Francis's efforts to foster unity among religions gain momentum. The narrative weaves through instances of joint prayer sessions, collaborative humanitarian efforts, and shared spiritual practices. The theorists draw connections to passages in the Bible that speak of a time when nations will come together, beating their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. His influence was not limited to spiritual matters. Acting in some ways like a state, Pope Francis enjoyed formal diplomatic relations with over 180 individual countries across the globe. His charismatic and popular figure, a symbol of openness and simplicity, spread far beyond the head of the Catholic Church's constituency. He was known for his commitment to social justice and for his efforts to transform the long-standing conservative image of the Catholic Church. Yet, as he stood before the crowd, a question lingered in the air. What were the implications of this newfound unity? Could this unification of global faiths under one leader lead to a concentration of too much power? As the crowd erupted in applause, Pope Francis looked out, his gaze steady and resolute. But beneath his calm exterior, a storm of questions raged. Was he leading the world towards unity, or was he unknowingly paving the way for division? Only time would tell. In a world grappling with uncertainty, a captivating theory emerges, weaving a narrative that transcends the conventional bounds of reality. In this speculative tale, Pope Francis, the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, is envisioned as a charismatic figure with an ambitious vision, rebuilding a global power reminiscent of the ancient Roman Empire. The foundation of this theory draws inspiration from both historical and religious sources, creating a narrative that resonates with intrigue. The proponents of this theory point to the prophetic and symbolic passages in religious texts, such as the Bible and the Quran, to construct a narrative that positions Pope Francis as a transformative figure in the course of history. The theorists delve into the biblical prophecies examining passages that allude to a leader who will rise to power and influence the world. In Daniel 7:23-25, a vision of 4 beasts is presented, representing successive world empires. The theorists interpret the 4th beast as a symbol of a revived Roman Empire, and within it, they see the emergence of a powerful and charismatic leader, the potential Antichrist. They suggest that this leader, like the ancient Roman emperors, will seek to exert control and influence over the nations, reshaping the world order to align with a new vision. Drawing parallels between the prophecies and the current global landscape, the theorists highlight Pope Francis's charismatic leadership style. Known for his progressive views on social issues and his emphasis on inclusivity, the Pope becomes the central figure in this speculative narrative. The theorists argue that Pope Francis's ability to unite people under a common moral umbrella aligns with the qualities of a leader who could rebuild a global power reminiscent of the Roman Empire. To bolster their narrative, the theorists tap into historical and geopolitical analysis. They argue that the decline of the Roman Empire over time serves as a historical precedent for a potential revival. They envision Pope Francis leveraging modern tools, such as economic alliances, digital communication, and political influence, to consolidate global authority. This speculative tale suggests that Pope Francis, with his strategic political acumen, could form alliances, manipulate international dynamics, and use crises as opportunities to advance his agenda. The narrative unfolds as Pope Francis takes symbolic actions, possibly involving the Catholic Church in the geopolitical arena. The theorists speculate that the Pope might influence world leaders, engage in diplomatic efforts, and use the Church's vast influence to pave the way for a new world order. The construction of a symbolic Third Temple in Jerusalem, echoing the historical significance of Solomon's Temple, becomes a key element in this speculative story. The theorists believe that such an act could signify the Pope's attempt to establish a spiritual center, mirroring the influence the Roman Empire exerted through its cultural and religious practices. As the narrative progresses, Pope Francis extends his influence beyond religious realms into the political, economic, and military spheres. The theorists envision a world where the Pope, as a spiritual and political leader, gains control over nations, economies, and armies. His charismatic appeal transcends religious boundaries, and people from various faiths rally behind his vision for a harmonious and unified world. In the closing stages of this speculative tale, the theorists draw attention to the parallels between Pope Francis's vision and the ancient Roman Empire. The emphasis on unity, cultural influence, and the consolidation of power evokes echoes of Rome's historical legacy. The narrative ends with a thought-provoking reflection on the potential consequences of such a global transformation, leaving room for contemplation about the intersections of faith, power, and the enduring echoes of ancient empires. In the dimly lit corridors of conspiracy, a theory takes shape, suggesting a paradigm shift within the heart of the Catholic Church. This speculative tale envisions Pope Francis not as a unifying figure, but as an apostate church leader, a shepherd leading his flock astray. At the core of this theory lies a careful examination of biblical passages, particularly focusing on warnings about a great falling away or apostasy in the last days. Proponents of this narrative point to the Apostle Paul's letter to Timothy, where a chilling prophecy unfolds. In 1 Timothy 4:1-2, Paul forewarns of a time when some will abandon their faith, lured by deceiving spirits and teachings from demons. Within the context of this prophecy, the theorists envision a scenario where Pope Francis represents a Christianity that has deviated from its core tenets. The tale begins with Pope Francis's early pontificate, marked by messages of inclusivity, social justice, and a departure from certain traditional stances of the Catholic Church. Proponents argue that these shifts sow the seeds of a potential apostasy, a subtle departure from the foundational truths of Christianity. As the Pope's teachings take unexpected turns, a rift emerges within the Church, with factions forming around divergent interpretations of doctrine. To lend credence to their speculative narrative, the theorists delve into Pope Francis's public statements and actions. They highlight instances where the Pope's emphasis on mercy, tolerance, and a pastoral approach is perceived by some as compromising the Church's doctrinal integrity. The narrative suggests that the Pope, in his pursuit of a more inclusive church, inadvertently opens the door to doctrinal dilution, paving the way for the apostasy shift. The theorists draw parallels between the warnings in biblical passages and the perceived departure from traditional teachings within the church. They examine statements made by Pope Francis on topics such as divorce, homosexuality, and the role of women, suggesting that these stances deviate from established doctrines. By referencing verses like Matthew 24:24, where false prophets and false messiahs are foretold to perform great signs and wonders, the theorists weave a narrative where Pope Francis's influential leadership becomes a focal point of contention. As the tale unfolds, Pope Francis is depicted as a charismatic leader steering the church into uncharted waters. The theorists point to symbolic gestures, such as the Synod on the Family, where discussions on issues like divorce and communion spark internal debates. The narrative suggests that these discussions, intended to address contemporary challenges, inadvertently create fractures within the church, laying the groundwork for a perceived apostasy. The climax of the narrative arrives as Pope Francis, guided by his vision of a more inclusive church, issues statements that some interpret as questioning traditional Christian beliefs. The theorists reference statements on the possibility of salvation for non-believers and the need to reevaluate moral teachings, framing these as pivotal moments in the speculated apostate shift. The Pope's emphasis on conscience and discernment, while intended to navigate the complexities of the modern world, becomes a source of theological tension. The speculative tale concludes with an exploration of the confusion and disillusionment among the faithful. The once unified church now grapples with internal discord, with factions interpreting the Pope's words in divergent ways. Congregants, faced with the unsettling prospect of a leader challenging established doctrines, find themselves torn between loyalty and doctrinal fidelity. The theorists leave the audience with a contemplative question about the delicate balance between doctrinal adaptability and the preservation of core beliefs, inviting reflection on the potential consequences of such a schism within a venerable institution. In the realm of speculative theories, a captivating narrative emerges, blending elements of science fiction with ancient prophecies. This narrative unfolds as a theory that Pope Francis is not merely a pontiff, but a harbinger of an otherworldly presence, an alien deception. At the heart of this tale is a creative twist on biblical prophecies, particularly those that speak of great signs and wonders in the end times. The theorists explore the notion that these extraordinary occurrences might not be divine in nature, but rather a manifestation of advanced extraterrestrial technology. To introduce this speculative twist, they delve into passages like Revelation 13:13-14, which foretell the deceptive miracles of false prophets and beasts. The narrative commences with Pope Francis, the charismatic leader of the Catholic Church, embracing an unexpected revelation. Beneath the hallowed halls of the Vatican, he unveils a secret chamber containing ancient texts that purportedly detail encounters with beings from the heavens. Drawing from the Bible and ancient religious texts, the Pope unveils a narrative suggesting that these beings are not angels, but technologically advanced extraterrestrial entities. To enhance the narrative, the theorists invoke the Quran, referencing verses that speak of jinn and unseen beings. The Pope, in this tale, points to the convergence of religious texts across cultures, suggesting a shared history of interaction with these advanced beings. The narrative takes a sci-fi turn as the Pope reveals artifacts allegedly left behind by these celestial visitors. Artifacts that defy the known laws of physics and bear the hallmarks of advanced alien technology. Pope Francis becomes a conduit between Earth and these extraterrestrial beings, unveiling their advanced knowledge to humanity. The Vatican, now a nexus of ancient wisdom and futuristic technology, becomes a focal point for the revelation. The Pope, once seen as a spiritual leader, transforms into a messenger of the stars, guiding humanity toward a new era of enlightenment. As the tale unfolds, the Pope showcases the advanced technology bestowed upon him by these beings. He demonstrates feats that defy earthly limitations, healing the sick with a touch, manifesting holographic visions, and even altering the fabric of reality itself. The narrative links these displays of power to passages in the Bible and Quran that speak of extraordinary signs heralding a transformative period. The revelation of advanced alien technology spreads beyond religious circles, causing ripples of fear and uncertainty across the globe. Governments, religious leaders, and scientists grapple with the implications of this disclosure. Conspiracy theories emerge, intertwining tales of secret alliances between world leaders and extraterrestrial beings. The once stable fabric of reality begins to unravel as people question the nature of their existence and the origins of their beliefs. In the climax of the narrative, Pope Francis stands before a gathering of world leaders and broadcasts a message to humanity. He speaks of unity, not just among nations, but with beings from the stars. The Pope, now a cosmic envoy, calls for a collective embrace of the extraterrestrial knowledge and technology that promises to reshape human civilization. The chaotic aftermath of this revelation unfolds as societies grapple with the integration of alien technology into everyday life. Fear and uncertainty grip the hearts of many who ponder the consequences of this cosmic entanglement. The once stable foundations of religious faith, scientific understanding, and geopolitical order crumble, leaving humanity at the crossroads of its own evolution. In the concluding moments of the narrative, the theorists invite reflection on the profound impact of such a revelation. The story prompts contemplation on the delicate balance between faith and reason, the consequences of cosmic encounters, and the uncharted territories that await a humanity forever changed by the revelation of an alien deception. In a speculative exploration of alternative narratives, a theory emerges, suggesting that Pope Francis, traditionally seen as the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, might harbor political ambitions that extend far beyond the ecclesiastical realm. This theory envisions Pope Francis not merely as a spiritual guide, but as a political leader, orchestrating a geopolitical shift that unites nations under a singular global government. The story begins with Pope Francis leveraging his position and influence within the Vatican to engage in global diplomacy. His charismatic leadership style and calls for unity resonate across religious and cultural boundaries, gradually positioning him as a unifying figure beyond the spiritual realm. The Vatican, traditionally an influential religious institution, becomes a diplomatic hub where world leaders seek counsel and guidance. Drawing inspiration from the Quranic principles of justice and unity among nations, the theorists weave a narrative in which Pope Francis, driven by a vision of global harmony, works tirelessly to bridge political divides. The Pope engages in peace talks, brokers international agreements, and urges nations to set aside their differences for the sake of a unified world order. The narrative is punctuated with references to biblical and Quranic passages that speak of a time when nations will come together under a single leader. As Pope Francis gains political influence, he proposes the establishment of a centralized world government, drawing inspiration from biblical visions of a unified kingdom. The Vatican, now a symbol of both spiritual and political authority, becomes the epicenter of this global governance initiative. The Pope's calls for unity echo across continents, and nations gradually cede elements of their sovereignty to this newly formed political entity. The narrative takes a dramatic turn as the Vatican transforms into a political powerhouse, influencing international policies, economic systems, and military alliances. The Pope, once seen primarily as a spiritual guide, becomes a symbol of global authority, wielding political power that transcends religious boundaries. The world watches as nations, enticed by the promise of peace and prosperity, willingly submit to this newfound political order. In the closing chapters of this speculative tale, the theorists emphasize the potential threat posed by such a global government to religious freedom and individuality. The centralized authority, initially established under the banner of unity, begins to suppress dissenting voices and divergent beliefs. Religious practices that deviate from the endorsed ideology face persecution, and individual freedoms are curtailed in the name of maintaining order and cohesion. The theorists prompt reflection on the delicate balance between global cooperation and the preservation of individual liberties. The narrative serves as a cautionary tale, urging readers to consider the implications of a world where religious and political powers converge, potentially threatening the very foundations of personal autonomy and diverse belief systems. As the story unfolds, it leaves lingering questions about the intersection of spirituality and politics, the boundaries of authority, and the consequences of a world reshaped by a political leader who transcends traditional roles. Embarking on a speculative journey into the realms of theology, a theory emerges challenging the conventional understanding of the Antichrist. This interpretation, often referred to as the spirit of the Antichrist theory, posits that the Antichrist is not embodied in a single person, but manifests as a pervasive force opposing the principles of Christ. The narrative begins with a deep dive into biblical passages that hint at the subtle and insidious nature of this opposing force. Drawing from the teachings of the Apostle Paul in 1 Timothy 4:1-2, where he warns about a great falling away or apostasy in the last days, theorists suggest that this departure from genuine Christian faith is influenced by a malevolent force. The Antichrist, in this theory, is portrayed as an intangible spirit that subtly infiltrates individuals, societies, and ideologies, contradicting Christian values and distorting core beliefs. As the narrative unfolds, the theorists explore historical instances where the spirit of the Antichrist might have manifested. Figures like Martin Luther, during the Protestant Reformation, viewed the Pope as embodying the Antichrist, highlighting the malleable nature of this theory, which can adapt to various historical contexts. In modern discussions, the spirit of Antichrist theory is applied to secularization, atheistic ideas, and shifts in moral values, suggesting that the force opposing Christ's influence can take myriad forms. The term Antichrist appears in both the Old and New Testaments, but the term spirit of the Antichrist appears only once in 1 John 4:3. The verse states, "Every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus does not belong to God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you have heard that it is coming, and now it is already in the world." This passage suggests that the spirit of the Antichrist is already present in the world, opposing the principles of Christ. This interpretation gains depth as it delves into the broader implications of the spirit of the Antichrist theory. The narrative suggests that this opposing force transcends traditional religious boundaries, manifesting in movements, ideologies, and even within institutions that claim to uphold Christian principles. It explores the idea that the Antichrist isn't a single malevolent figure, but a pervasive influence that subtly works against the core tenets of Christianity. The theorists draw connections to the current era, where secularization, moral relativism, and a departure from traditional values are seen as potential manifestations of the spirit of the Antichrist. The narrative raises thought-provoking questions about the nature of evil, whether it exists as a tangible, personified force or as a pervasive and intangible influence that weaves through the fabric of societies and individual beliefs. The spirit of the Antichrist is a powerful reminder of the ongoing battle between good and evil, a struggle that is central to many religious and philosophical traditions. Good is often associated with selflessness, empathy, and compassion, while evil is linked with selfishness, lack of empathy, and narcissism. The spirit of the Antichrist embodies these negative qualities, standing in stark contrast to the teachings of love, truth, and righteousness espoused by Christ. Apostle John, in 1 John 2:18-22, issues a warning about antichrists, individuals who deny Jesus as the Christ, contributing to the development of the idea of a charismatic antichrist deviating from conventional Christian beliefs. Jesus, in Matthew 24, cautions against false prophets deceiving even the elect, laying the groundwork for the concept of an antichrist-wielding religious charisma. This concept intertwines with discussions surrounding the end times, the second coming of Christ, and biblical prophecies, sparking diverse perspectives among scholars throughout history. From the context, we can clearly see that John means Christians who have left the community. They went out from us, but they did not really belong to us, and they would have remained with us. And these sentences make it clear who the Antichrist is: whoever denies that Jesus is Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son. Since we have heard that Francis recites the symbol on each Sunday and assumes him to be an honest man, which he has proven to his disadvantage quite a few times, we can safely conclude that he means what he says. Ergo, he doesn't deny the Father nor the Son. Ergo, he cannot be the Antichrist, which, BW, is impossible anyway because the context and the usage of these sentences make it clear that the writer means something that has happened in the past. See verse 19. It is not a prophecy. Francis visited Myanmar. He visited the indigenous people of Chile, which triggered bombs in front of churches. He sent one message after the other to the church: be with the poor. So he is someone who does the will of the Father, hence he cannot by definition deny the Father.